And I really liked it, but I had no idea what the heck I was doing, you know. But I just started kind of noodle around, which actually isn't a bad way to approach doing bluegrass fiddle, because you're just trying to look for ways to, first on songs, a lot about bluegrass is backing up songs and doing fills, because bluegrass really is a vocal type of music. I mean, instrumentalists, we think of it's all about the tunes, but it's also about filling in for singers, because that's what's mostly bluegrass. If you go to hear a bluegrass concert, it'd be like one instrumental for every 5 or 6 songs probably. So there's a big part of it. And then there's the bit of playing, there's particular tunes that are bluegrass fiddle tunes, and that's where I'll concentrate this week, is on some bluegrass fiddle tunes, because those will be the vehicle for learning, kind of figuring out what's going on with all these chords. The fiddler I probably most tried to emulate when I was starting to play bluegrass was Kenny Baker. And if you haven't listened to him, all of his old LPs from the 70s have been reissued on CD, and I bet a lot of them are on Google Play and Spotify and everything else. But yeah, although when you do look up Kenny Baker, you also see a lot of albums by a certain jazz trumpet player who had the same name, but who probably put out more records than Kenny did. But Kenny Baker is probably the guy I emulated the most when I was learning to play, because he's also sounded like an old-time fiddler. He came from that tradition and then started playing bluegrass. He plays swing too. He's passed away now, but man, he was fantastic. And people have all different approaches to doing it too. Now that I kind of know where we are, I'll bring my PC down tomorrow and just play some examples of maybe a half dozen bluegrass fiddle players, because there's a lot of ways to skin this cat, you know, ton of ways. So let's, but we won't be actually skinning any cats in actuality. So I thought I'd start with a Kenny Baker tune called Festival Waltz. And is anybody familiar with that tune? Okay. And again, the tunes I'm going to use, they're all bluegrass standard fiddle tunes. But I'm going to use them again as a vehicle for talking about chords. Okay, so let's just play it. Another thing I really am going to emphasize is playing, unfortunately, and it sounds like violin class, but playing scales and arpeggios, because bluegrass fiddle is about chords, and you got to know what the chord notes are and be able to find them with real facility, with ease, in order to effectively dream up improvisation, to quickly play a melody, you know, on some tune that's being played. And it's also another thing to emphasize is it's also not always about playing a hot solo. Sometimes just about playing the melody straight, you know, that can be your break. Yeah. You know, so that's the other aspect of bluegrass fiddle playing is, you know, when the song is going on, there's fills in the spaces of the song, you know, and then there's also breaks. And so we'll talk about both those things too. But again, we're going to do most of it through the vehicle of actual tunes, so that when you're done here, you'll have some tunes to play too. Because to teach a week's worth of licks would be kind of boring, I think. So everybody can do this, right? Let's just find the E on the D string here, and the open A. And now, is everybody good with me saying note names on the strings, or you want me or a finger number? You know, I can do either one. It's like everyone knew where the E note was on the D string, right? So okay, because I can do it either way or both, but. So the first little thing is let's just do this, you know. I mean, for people who played a long time, that's super easy. Okay, that's like I'm going to also teach some different shuffles. They're different than the shuffles, and they'll be different than the shuffles you'd use like playing an Appalachian fiddle tune. There are some distinct, you know, like Georgia Shuffle and some other patterns that people use. But that's called the Nashville Shuffle, because, you know, if you watch, you know, Grand Ole Opry reruns and you see the square dancers are getting ready to go, you know, that's the thing you always do, you know, to kick off the tune. But that lick can be used to play whole tunes, and there's some bluegrass fiddlers, like if you listen to there's a guy named Curly Ray Klein who played for Ralph Stanley, who was real rough and ready, kind of really sounded like an old-time fiddler, you know, of the old school. And he used that lick, you know, to play all of his breaks and his tunes, you know, like there's this tune called Polk County Breakdown. And some of Tommy Jackson's stuff, I don't know if you've been listening much to him, but you know, old Joe Clark. I mean, there's some bluegrass fiddlers, old-time bluegrass fiddlers. The modern guys do completely different stuff, but you can do that to play a whole tune. You can do that to play a break, you know. So that's actually, even though it's kind of hackneyed and overdone, you know, the little dee 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 dee, but actually as a lick on the bow, you can use it to play a whole piece of music. So it's a useful thing to have in your toolbox, you know. So let me play you a little bit of this Festival Waltz here, see if I can get through it. But this early in the morning here. Sorry. Little rough, the bush light fog is still working on me, but so that's Festival Waltz. I thought that'd be the first thing we'll try to mess with. So it's in A. Let's just play. So now let's just play around a little bit with A. Let's just play an A scale here, just all together. So we're going to start on this A here, and now you know, just as and again, I'm going to probably say things you already know, but I think about when I'm playing tunes, I always think about, you know, what's the pattern for the scale. So that's the pattern for the A scale on the G and D string. So if you play that finger pattern with this being so if we start, that's A, that's a whole, wherever there's a space, there's a whole step. In other words, there's a missing note. So that's A, B, C sharp, D. And you can play the D open, or you can finger it with your fourth finger. Okay, so let's just start right there. Here we go. I'll give you 2 taps for each one. Now keep going. All that. So on the A and D string, it was this finger pattern, right? Because like if we're on A, so it'd be open A, B, C sharp, D, a space, the E string or the fourth finger E, and then on the E string it'd be E, F sharp, G sharp, A, and B. So that'd be the highest note we can play on the fiddle without shifting into another position. So now let's play the arpeggio. So here's where we start to get into chords. Okay, so that's what the A scale would look like. So if we want to play the arpeggio, if we're going to play an A chord, like on the guitar, the notes we'd pick would be A, C sharp, and E. And that's the first, third, and fifth scale notes. So that's how you make a chord, a major chord. So we're going to play, what we're going to do now is we're going to play, starting on the A on the G string, we're going to play all the A's, C sharps, and E's we find on the way up to the A on the E string. So here we go. Stop. Okay, so without shifting though, just play open. You were shifting, that was good. Yeah, so just when you get to this A, just keep going on up. Everything's going to be in first position or like without moving up the neck at all. Here, try it one more time. Yeah, so you want to get to where you can, you play those things like we're going, kind of without thinking about it. Okay? So now if we continue just on this vein of chords, because we'll learn this tune, but then I'll show you a whole passel of double stops to put in the tune. So just thinking about chords for A though, and also I've got this chart I'll print out for everybody tomorrow. I wasn't sure how many people were going to come, so I didn't print anything yet. But so if we take those three notes and we play any combination of those two together, that's a double stop or a chord on the fiddle, but that'll work with A played on, if you're playing an A, any two of those notes played together will sit nice on top of an A chord. So if we play, so the first thing you can do is this barred A and E. So now if you haven't played barred, some people haven't played barred two strings, and the tendency is like, especially if you played a fretted instrument, like to lay your finger down and try to cover two. But what I do is I think about there being a third string between the two, and I try to hit that string just like, but you want your finger to come straight down, just like it was playing one string, And that's kind of sometimes that's a thing I'd practice too, is like playing a barred chord, barred scale. So you get used to playing across both strings. It's kind of weirdly out of tune, but okay. So if we just played that, let's just play that chord there. Okay. Now if we take the E and the C sharp and play them together, we get an A chord too. So okay, good. Now leave that C sharp there and play with the A on the fourth finger of the D string. And then this is the one we did when we first started messing around. We played the E with the open A. Now you can play the E on the D string with the C sharp on the A. Now leave the C sharp down and play the A with your fourth finger on the... Okay. Now play the C sharp with the open E. Now play the C sharp with the A on the E string. And lastly, play the A with the E on the A string. Play the A on the E string with the E on the A string. Okay, good. And then, so here's another little, actually that reminded me of another little thing, digression here I can make, but when I'm playing like a chord for, like a chord kickoff or just playing a chord in a tune, so we talked about, what the names of the notes are, or the numbering of the notes, the number of the note in the scale. So if I play 1, 3, 5, 1, a lot of people will play like old time fiddle. Like say you wanted to start out in A, you might do something like this. Play that C sharp with the A. Well, that's the third. That's a third with a 1. 3, 1. But this sounds better, especially for bluegrass. It's just edgier, And we'll play some tunes that use that, but it's just, to me, it's brighter, cuts through. You know, that's the other thing about fiddle. You're playing with 5 other really loud instruments, particularly bluegrass banjo, you know, and you really need to cut through. So things like that can help the fiddle cut through the noise, you know. Okay, so let's go back to this tune here and learn the first little bit of it. So I'll just play. What I do is I just play a little piece of it, and you play it back to me, and like we'll move through it pretty fast. If you don't, if I see that everybody's got 80% of it or 70% of it, we'll move on. You know, some people are going to get all of it, some people not, but that's okay. You know, because I don't anticipate at a thing like this you don't master everything you get exposed to, but you just get more stuff to work on when you get home. So the tune starts out like this. Let's see. So I'm starting on this. Got 2 pickup notes here: C sharp and B. One more time. One more. Okay, and then here we go. Everybody together. And the next little bit is. Repeat what we did before. Okay, good. First couple of bars. Here we go. It'll move along faster as we get going. But. And then. Okay, so we're gonna do this. Listen. So let's talk about what I did there just a second. So I'm using my 4th finger, and the reason is I don't want to have a string crossing, because you know you could do it that way, and you'd get a different kind of effect. But it's most smooth if you just play. And same again there. I'm using my 4th finger to avoid a string crossing, because I could do it that way, but it's much smoother. Okay, so start right here. So you start on this E on the D string. Just do that a little bit. So far you got this. Just listen. Let's play that together. Here we go. Start right here. Now we're just going to play a nice scale, so the next bit is just a scale. Just listen. So it's a scale from here up to here. Okay, good. So point out that that's a scale. You know, that's why I practice scales, because like fiddle tunes are scales, little bits of scales connected to little bits of arpeggios, connected to other little bits of scales. I mean, that's how you make a tune, right? So if you practice those things, since fiddle playing is about muscle memory, you know, if you practice those things just separately by themselves, as soon as you hear that, you're going to go, oh, I can do that. You know, I know what that is. As soon as you hear it, you just lay your fingers down. So start right there on that B again. Play the little scale part. Okay, and now we're going to try to get back. So right now, all that's pretty much an E chord there. So we're trying to get back to A. So we're going to try to transition back to A. So I'm going to start right here. Just listen to this next passage. Okay, so what we're doing is, here's what's happening voice-wise. It's going. So that's kind of what, that's the moving line, but we're playing it, you know, with a melody, so it's going to be. So start right here on this G sharp. Here we go. I just play C underneath that. Listen one more time. Okay, try that with it there. Good. Okay, so let's start back at the beginning. So now we actually know about, since fiddle tunes do this wonderful thing of repeating parts that they already played, we actually know 3/4 of the way through the first part here. So let's start back at the beginning and just play as much of it as you can here. Right here. It's going to go somewhere else. So it's so what's going to happen now is the first part of the tune pretty much, although as you'll see there's a lot more chords going on, but the first part of the tune is pretty much A, do 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 do. That's all A. Do 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 do. That's E. Do 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 do. So this is all A. Now we're going to play A7. So we're going to play, we've got to get to D. We're headed for D. So let's talk about another kind of chord here real quickly. So what we played with those 3 notes was what's called a major chord. It's a triad. There's always 3 notes. You can get away with those 3 notes on any chord, but it's the color notes that make chords sound cool. And so in this case, we're going to play what's called a D7 chord, or dominant chord. And what's going to go on there is we're going to add a note. So the A arpeggio sounds like this. We're going to add a G natural in there. So that's the 7th note of the A scale, but flat at a half step. So it's going to be, so normally the 7th note of the A scale would be, it's like major 7, but we're going to play dominant 7. So it's, so that arpeggio would sound like this. Just try that so you can hear it now. So we're going to play A, C sharp, E, G natural, A. G natural. And it's those, that's one of the key things in making bluegrass blue, is playing dominant chords. I mean, you don't use them so much in fiddle music, regular fiddle music, depending on the tune, but by and large, the more of those you put in, the grassier it starts to sound, you know. So if you want to grassify your fiddle tunes, you know, that's, you put those notes in. So we're going to play that flat at 7. So what we're doing, but anytime you hear that, it tells you it's a transmitted message to everybody you're playing with. Like if you're playing with experienced players and you're an A and you play an A7, everybody you're with knows the next chord is a D. I mean, because the 7 chord is used to move to the 4 chord of whatever key that is, or whatever that relationship is. So so now, not to confuse, I'm going to talk about scale notes, 1, 3, 5, but I'm also going to talk about chord progressions. So in this case, it'd be 1, 4, 5. It'd be the chord. We're going to the 4 chord. In other words, it's a chord made on the 4th degree of the scale. So try not to confuse that, and I'll try to keep it as clear as I can when I say it. But so if anybody hears this, you know, you're going, there's only one place to go. It's to a D. And that's what the tune does. So let me start back where I was. Let's see. I'm starting in the middle here. Okay, so we're going to play. We've got to get that G natural in there. So the lick is this, or the melody is this. Just do that a little bit. So. Okay. Let me just play it on to the end here so you can kind of start to get the melody in your head. So I'll start right there. Okay, so if we start right here, let's do that little lick there. So it's. So now we're in a D chord there. Okay, try that again. Then. So what we're doing there, it's going D, D minor, and that's a transition back to A. Okay, so let's try one more time from right here. Okay, so that part's going to go. Start right here in this A. And again, just like to point out till you almost want to puke, but that's an A arpeggio. So they're just everywhere. Do that a little bit, and then little chromatic thing. Start on this F sharp. So we're starting right, and then an E chord. Listen one more time. One more time. Okay. Want to try it from the beginning and just see how much of it we can get played? Let's try it right here. Okay. Okay, good. Everybody feel fairly comfortable with what we're doing there? Okay.